This house regrets the narrative that parents should prioritize the interests of their children over their own. Noted? This house regrets the narrative that parents should prioritize the interests of their children over their own.
Let us start this debate.
The judges, the two competing sides in the August House. Standing here is the first speaker from Team Affirmative, and we are affirming the motion that states that this House regrets the narrative that parents should prioritize their interests, the interests of their children over their own. My dear judges, indeed, Team Affirmative regrets this narrative, my dear judges. But first of all, you should understand that exact meaning of the motion, my dear judges. The meaning of the motion, my dear judges. We have the word narrative. The narrative is almost like, okay, to bring it into simple terms, it's a notion. I thought that parents have to prioritize the interests of their children over their own, my dear judges. We have to prioritize, to put something in front of the other, my dear judges, to make something compulsory to have it in order to fulfill another condition, my dear judges. And bringing the motion to layman's language, we say that we regret the thought that parents should put their children's interests in front of theirs, my dear judges. My dear judges, when we look at a child's interest, a child's interest basically starts in the actually from childhood. A child wants to enjoy TV, wants to watch cartoons from morning to evening, my dear judges. We also have a stage where a child loves internet, loves partying, loves hanging out with friends, my dear judges. So we are regretting the fact that the parent is going to actually put this interest of a child in front of theirs, because a parent's interest basically includes the happiness of a child, my dear judges. And the things that make a parent happy for their child include the fact that their child has completed studying, their child is happy in the world, and their child has attained the best the parents could provide, my dear judges. So why do we regret this notion as team? So as Team Affirmative, we look at the current status quo that parents that prioritize their children's interests over theirs, my dear judges, have actually left their children exposed to the world, because one of their needs is the happiness of the child, my dear judges. But they have left these children exposed to the world in order to keep them happy, my dear judges. In the end, the children have been exposed to the internet. But what is trending on the internet, my dear judges? We find children have got spoiled with sex steps, my dear judges. Children are full of net updates, my dear judges. The bad activities that are happening on the net, my dear judges. Children have gone ahead to also start carrying out these activities and training on the net in the names of posting to gain fame, my dear judges. But which world are we heading to, my dear judges? Are we going to leave the children to go berserk and raise a nation of children that actually are not morally upright in the names of parents have prioritized their children's interests, my dear judges? Surely Team Affirmative has a reason to regret this narrative, my dear judges. So as the first speaker from Team Affirmative, I'll explain the point of permissiveness. That is as a result of parents. That is a result of parents having their children's interests in front of their own, my dear judges. My dear judges, the fact that, and then we shall have the second affirmer, Honorable Okiria Michael, who will come and furthermore elaborate more on the affirmer's case, my dear judges. And then we shall have Honorable Kanawi Jonathan, who will further weigh the motion and clarify the points of Team Affirmative, my dear judges. So, as the first speaker, I bring in the point of permissiveness that is as a result of parents thinking about their children, my dear judges, interests of parents, and the interests of parents that would favor their children. With this all said, I rest my case for any cross-examination.
Okay. I request for yes or no answers. Would that be possible?
Pardon?
I request for yes or no answers. Would that be possible?
Depending on your question.
Okay. So I'll begin my cross-examination now. So does interest affect focus?
It does.
Does focus affect success?
It does.
Okay, thank you so much. Can the child's interest be based on talent?
Pardon?
Can a child's interest be based on their talent?
Try to clarify.
Like when I want to play football, can it be because I have a talent in football, then I'm interested in football? Okay. Does a parent have a social contract to the child?
Yes, and it's a lifetime
Okay,
contract.
okay. So does a child have a right to choice?
Pardon?
Does the child have a right to choice?
Yes, but not fully
So
given.
what is your mechanism of change in this resolution? Oh, thank you so much.
I rest my case.
So I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, note that even before the children are born, parents actually have the idea of what their children will be in future. Now, panel, on our side of the house, we are going to actually show you why we don't regret the narrative of parents, of that parents should prioritize the interests of their children over their own. Now, panel, how does a narrative actually look like? A narrative is actually a belief or a saying created by society, right? Now, panel, why do we regret something on our side of the house? We regret something if at all it brings more harm than good, right? We regret something if at all there are short-term benefits and long-term harms. Now, panel, we notice that parents, one of the characteristics of parents is that they always want the best for their children, right? And everything they do is actually in line to actually help the child achieve whatever they want to achieve. Now, panel, what are the cases on our side of the house? We're actually going to see self-actualization, right? We are going to see that these children are actually going to be able to do whatever they have to do, self-actualization. This is actually important because if at all I'm prioritizing what I have to do, it's actually going to be better for me because I believe it is what has to be done. Secondly, a priority. Prioritizing the interests of the children doesn't necessarily mean we are neglecting whatever the parent has to tell us, right? We actually believe that we are only giving the first priority, right? That even if the first priority actually fails, we can still go back to the other priority of the parent. We are only prioritizing. We are not saying we are neglecting the interests presented by the parents. Now, secondly, what do they come and tell us? They come and tell us that, oh, hey, parents have left children to actually practice their interests, social media and stuff. But, panel, we actually believe that this is not realistic of how everyone wrongly uses social media, right? Very many people actually use social media for the most beneficial things, right? They use the social media for education, for what have you. They only look at the very few percentage in status quo that actually misuses the social media. So, panel, we see that if at all a parent allows this child to use social media and remove the wrong mentality that social media is only there to spoil children, we are going to see that the child is actually going to benefit more out of it. Secondly, we see that children in status quo have actually been exposed, right? So this actually nullifies the point where they will come to tell us that these children are not experienced. Children in status quo are actually exposed. And if at all they are considering their priorities, if at all we are considering their interests, we are actually going to achieve a better society, right? We are not actually forcing anyone to do anything. We are living we are achieving better self-actualization on our side than on their side. Now, panel, consider the fact of a narcissistic parent, right? There are parents who actually want only the best for themselves, right? The narcissistic parents actually do exist in status quo, and they only dictate what the child does, right? We believe it's actually important for this child to actually consider their interests because we acknowledge the fact that narcissistic parents do exist in status quo. And if at all a child does something that is not in their interest, they are most liable not to do it right and better. So on our side of our house, we see that everything that is going to be done better. And if everything is done better, we actually achieve a better society. Now, panel, what did they come and have to tell us? They had to come and tell us why they actually regret this narrative, right? Something they didn't actually do very well. They gave us no analysis on how they actually regret this narrative. But on our side of the house, we tell you that we regret something if at all they are only short-lived benefits and long-lived harms, right? But we are going to actually see that the child is going to have self-actualization and they're actually going to receive better. I'm ready for cross-examination.
Do you believe that the children are included in the interests of their parents?
Yes,
Do you
they
believe?
are. Yes, they are.
Do you believe that children have unachievable interests such as talents?
You can't prove that.
You don't believe, eh?
Yes, I don't believe.
Which beneficial factors do children get from internet as you mentioned? Give me 3.
Education,
Really?
research.
Oh, thank you very much.
Many things.
Do you believe that most children who are morally declined have got this through permissiveness or giving them too much freedom? Do you believe?
Where do you get that research?
No, do you believe?
There are no statistics to
Do
prove
you
that.
believe or you
no,
don't
I don't
believe?
believe.
So you don't believe?
Yes.
I rest my case.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, our dear judges of today, the two opposite sides and the lovely house at large. So, as the motion of today states that this house regrets the narrative that parents should prioritize the interest of their children over their own. First of all, we gave them our status quo, that parents should prioritize their interest over their children's. And we look at the interest of the children. We are comparing a world where the children have their own interests without parental decisions, and a world where the parents provide the interest with good advantages. Look at the world. They asked us about talent. If the child were to go to a parent and says, I want to become a pilot, and the parent is poor, the parent will advise the child to do something else. That will not be force. It will be simple advice. I can't provide for you the need. Why would I instead take it out? But I will give you that other option. Our dear judges, the parent saying yes to the child is part of their interest. It's part of the parent's interest. Because if a child wants to become a doctor and the parent just says yes, meaning it's part of the parent's interest. So, we are looking at a world where children make decisions without any help. The child has a role model. This child is exposed to the outside world. Children watch movies where they are killing everyone. And the child is seeing and tells the parent, I want to be, won't even tell the parent, but since knows the parent will just accept, the child will just be like, I want to become a murderer. And what do we have next? High crime rates in the country. But when the parent's interest is the one that is prioritized over the child's interest, we look at the world where the child will go to the parent that I want to become a murderer, and the parent will be like, no, it's bad, take this and this. Our dear judges, let's look at permissiveness nowadays. Look at the effects. They say that children gain good things. They gain good things from phones. We look at the COVID saga. Children were left with their phones. But these children went back to schools and teachers were complaining. The children had nothing. So I don't know which education they're trying to talk about. Our dear judges, we have tackled their point of talents. And now, there's social media concentration. These children get interest from social media. That's why we are keeping on seeing the rising cases of the LGBT community, rising cases of murder, rising cases of theft. And is this what we are going to advocate for? No. But if the parents' interest is the one prioritized, we see that children are part of the parents' interest. The parent will want to educate the child. The parent will want to give a better life to the child. So the parent will give that child what he or she wants, and accordingly. Our dear judges, we look at today's motion and we clearly regret this narrative of parents prioritizing their interest, the children's interest over their own. So, our dear judges, we thank you for this. Permissiveness still stands. I wait for my cross-examination.
So thank you very much, dear Speaker. My examination time begins in 3, 2, 1. So, how does your side of the House achieve self-actualization?
Pardon?
How does your side of the House achieve self-actualization?
Because this child's decision to become something will be accepted by the parent, meaning the parent has that interest
thank you
also.
very much. Thank you very much.
The child
How does your
accepts it.
side of the House define a priority?
Pardon?
How does your side of the House define a priority?
Define
A priority.
a priority. My first speaker spoke about it, and it's irrelevant to my speech. Continue.
Thank you very much. Prioritizing their interests, but not neglecting what the parents want. Prioritizing their interests. Are you aware that when you're prioritizing, you don't actually completely neglect what the parent is saying?
Thank you. Meaning you agree with us that these children are going to
Thank
be
you
under
very
their
much.
parents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You,
and the
you
parents
said that.
will provide for their
Please,
children.
I have 5 seconds. So you say that if at all the child wants to be something and the parent is poor, are you aware that scholarships do exist?
And how many do we see in Uganda? Let him give us proof.
Thank you very
our
much.
dear judges.
Thank you very much. Time up? Okay, thank you very much.
I begin my debate speech. I begin my debate speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, to understand and break the cycle of emotional abuse, parental narcissism, toxic parenting, and dealing with impacts of adolescent development, this house regrets the narrative that parents should prioritize their interests over their children over their own. So, why did I use the theme of this breakfast? Because you're actually understanding and breaking the cycle of emotional abuse, parental narcissism, toxic parenting, and dealing with impacts of adolescent development. What the house is actually achieving is parental narcissism, and we're actually wanting to break the cycle of parental narcissism. So, I'm going to do the following things in my speech. One, I'm going to give you a rebuttal. One, starting with the rebuttal. They are talking about the point of immorality, but actually on our side of the house, we don't have immorality because independence is not the main cause of immorality. And two, even lack of freedom can also be a cause of immorality. So their case of immorality doesn't stand in this case. Two, they're talking about if the parent is poor and he can't actually afford for the parent. Let's look at the example that, yes, a child doesn't only have one interest. There are very many interests that can lie between the productivity of the parent. One. So, they talked about the mobile phones, but I actually want to tell you that on our side of the house, we show you that the parent hasn't been there in the era whereby children are using phones to actually know the benefits of these phones that they're actually using. So, impact analysis. One. My first speaker talked about a social contract. If the parent wants to actually prioritize his needs, they wouldn't actually have brought the child into the first place. They would have known that they are assigning a social contract, that they're actually knowing that I need to prioritize my needs for that because I'm the one who has actually brought them into the world. So we look at the fact that parents always want what's best for their child. If a parent knows that this is what's best for my child, I'm going to actually achieve it. So, comparative analysis. We're actually going to compare a world whereby we're actually going to compare a world whereby parents are actually prioritizing the interests of their children, and a world whereby they are not. Actually going to that in their world they are promoting parental narcissism, which is something bad, where parents don't actually care for the children. In our side of the house, we show you that you're actually creating emotionally stable citizens. In our world, we show you that you're actually we're actually moving the problem of toxic parenting, parental narcissism, and emotional abuse. Now, in their side of the house, they don't even give us. And in our side of the house, we show you why we do regret something. If we do regret something, which means that's short-lived benefits and long-lived harm. This is what their side of the house is actually acknowledging for. So, in the theme to understand and break the cycle of emotional abuse, parental narcissism, toxic parenting, and dealing with the impacts of adolescent development, this house would not regret parents prioritizing their interests over their children. I rest my case.
Thank you, the judges. Honorable, my first question. Do you acknowledge the fact that most of parents' priorities actually are leading to the happiness of the child?
Yes, because that was actually their first place when they're actually bringing the child into the world.
It was a yes or no. Honorable, do you believe in a world where children are emotionally not upright and they're regretting for parents because parents prioritize that?
We are actually in our world. We are actually achieving an emotionally upright.
Allow me finish what I'm speaking. That would be your speech.
Yes.
Do you believe in a world where children are regretting because parents gave in their priorities over theirs, or a world where children are happy because parents gave the priorities of the parents over for their children?
That's what your world is actually acknowledging for. Our world is acknowledging for the way the parents are actually interested in the talents of the children that are going to help them in future.
Or no?
I don't.
You don't. Honorable, what's the percentage of narcissistic parents
Time
in
is
Uganda?
over, please. Thank you very much.
My case.
The panel, the church organistic bodies at large. I'm the last speaker from team proposition, and I've actually come, my dear judges, to come and prove that team proposition presents a better case in this argument. My dear judges, let's compare two worlds. A world where children's priorities are where children's interests are prioritized over their children, and then a world where the interests of the parents are prioritized over their children. What are the interests of their parents, my dear judges? One, education of their parents, my dear judges, as given by the first speaker, and then them living a better life, which also includes their children. And that's what team opposition also agrees with. We look at the interests of their children, my dear judges. What are the interests of children? Social media, my dear judges, unachievable talents. They were mentioning of talents. A child wants to be a pilot. My first speaker told them, my dear judges, a parent is very poor. A parent should advise this child because the parent cannot provide for this child to become a pilot. So how can the child prioritize that, my dear judges? And then wrong decisions can easily be made by children, my dear judges. And then if we are to compare, my dear judges, which team presents the better case, my dear judges? My dear judges, when we look at the interests of parents, the interests of parents comprise of the interests of themselves, and then creating a conducive environment for also their children. Then, what does team opposition present to us, my dear judges? Team opposition presents to us that they want to promote the interests of these children by giving talents, and these talents are pilots. Can poor parents provide this, my dear judges? My first speaker told them that the parent is going to be there to advise, because in the interest of parents, it also includes these parents creating a conducive environment for their children, my dear judges. So, panel, we believe that team proposition wins this debate on one major factor, that the interests of the parents, my dear judges, also, my dear judges, contain the interests of the children, whereas the interests of the children, panel, do not sustain the interests of the parents. Which is better, my dear judges? The side that is going to benefit both, or the side that is going to benefit one, my dear judges? Panel, we see that team proposition presents a better case in this argument, my dear judges, that with the interests of these children being imparting social media, my dear judges, and then narcissism, my dear judges, they did not provide to us proof and to which extent, to which agency is narcissism in Uganda today for us to introduce such a law. Which proof is there to show that there is narcissism in Uganda, my dear judges? And the third speaker, you have, my dear judges, I don't know whether you will provide statistics for that. How many narcissistic parents do we have? You did not answer that. So you are not answering and giving to us narcissistic parents in Uganda shows that you are just creating fallacies for the whole of South and line, my dear judges. And I believe team proposition presents a better case in this debate, my dear judge. My dear judge, with the interest of the parents, the interest of the children, and the interest of the children not include the interest of the parents, shows that, my dear judge, the interest of the parents should be prioritized more than the interest of the children. With all this said, my dear judge, I believe team proposition presents a better case in this argument and wins tonight's debate, my dear judges. I rest my case.
I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So in the first half of my speech, I'll be eradicating. They ask us how many narcissistic parents are existing in Uganda. 0. But they are advocating for us to create the narcissistic parents that are not existing. Number 1, that is, I'll be eradicating the following cases, right? They are talking about the talents that are unachievable. But is a talent really unachievable? It's a talent. That means you must be good at it. If at all it's a talent. So in the end of it all, if you're good at being a pilot, you're going to be a pilot. And being good at something, advocate for a scholarship. And judges, this is what we are advocating for in status quo, right? They're telling us that the freedom is leading to immorality. But judges understand that lack of freedom is something that even leads to immorality more than the freedom that they are giving them, right? Understand that it's only about the environment that you're giving the freedom of the person into, right? That's the only effect that leads to the freedom of the environment. But if at all you don't give someone the freedom to exercise their rights, understand that they will become violent, and this is not creating transparency. Number 3, they are talking about the impossible interest. That is, this child is only there to be supported. He wants to be shown the support. If another parent knows it is not going to be achievable, just show me the support and I will know that you're on my side and you believe in me. And if at all I realize that we have really failed, I'll advocate for what you're advocating for. This does not really eliminate the interest of the parent. It just puts them aside until the child can really realize that what they are doing is not going to be benefiting them. And if at all it's impossible to be earned, that is, you understand that we'll be able to advocate for a better world. They are telling us that they are talking about the interest of the parent coinciding with the interest of the child. But that is, in most cases, this is very rare. The advocacy for the minority in status quo. Understand that not always what the parent wants for their child is what the child wants. Understand the parents sometimes depend on their occupations. If a parent is a lawyer, he would want the child to be a lawyer because he has understood the benefits of being a lawyer. Understand that if at all he sees that being a lawyer is very good, I would want my child to also be a lawyer because I've seen the benefits in it, right? Understand that benefiting both sides is something that is not favorable in this debate. We have a social contract with the child. We're supposed to serve in the best interest of the child, not the best interest of both of you, in the best interest of the child. So very catering for both sides is not what we are advocating for in this one. What are the points of clash of this debate? Accountability is the first point of clash of this debate. We are basing our side of the house on talent. If at all I'm good at something, it will be accountable for me to achieve this so-called goal, right? Understand at the end of it all, they are creating a world whereby the occupations that are going to be given to children are the occupations basing on the people that are already in those sectors, right? Number 2, the relevance. If at all I love something, I will focus on it. And if at all I focus, I will encourage and then it will encourage success, right? The other side of the house, in course examination, they told us that lack of focus can lead to unsuccessful, but they are creating a world whereby it's going to be dictative for the parent, and when a parent is dictating the child's action, it's becoming narcissistic. And then number 3, self-actualization. They are creating a child who is going to be very dependent on their parents' decisions, and we are creating a child who is going to be mentally upright and is going to be independent in every factor of life. Number 4, the right to choice. That is, they don't tell us how they are advocating for the right of choice. They just understand the outside of the house is giving the freedom to the child to choose what they really want, and this interest will lead to focus, and the focus will lead to success. Number 5, the social contract. They don't tell us how the social contract that the parent has to the child of them having to serve in the best interest and the best interest of the children has to exist, right? They were supposed to show us that the interest does not affect focus. And if I thought they were to show us that the interest does not affect focus, they were supposed to show us how the focus does not affect success. And outside of the house, we present to you, I rebel, relinquish, vote, if I have any claim, I remain as powered and forever hold my peace.